So Jovan and I actually started in 2018, investing in real estate. Jovan bought the triplex that we're currently house hacking and also rehabbing in 2018 of April. I'm just gonna say a little backstory. Then he proposed like a month later, so now I'm stuck here. Now we're married. Um, then after the triplex, we moved to San Jose in the Bay Area, if anyone's from over there. And that's when we started investing out of state in Oklahoma, Ponca City, Oklahoma. Our first property was 2019. That's when we purchased it, July 2019. And we didn't, contracting team we had out there didn't finish rehabbing it until the beginning of 2020. So we were, well, especially Jovan was freaking out because we were going through all this and not really purchasing a lot of homes. And the property down here, the triplex, wasn't really being rehabbed anymore. So Jovan and I moved back down to SoCal to fix up the triplex ourselves. It's currently in Apple Valley, California, if anybody's familiar with that area. It's the desert. And then at the middle of 2020, we purchased another home in Oklahoma. And then again, two more, what was it, like a month ago?
Yeah.
And that was the seller finance, which we'll get into. And then currently under contract for two more also in Ponca City.
So in total, how many doors do you guys own?
7.
Yeah, 7 right
7
now.
own and then 2 under contract.
Cool. And you guys started investing in 2018?
2018, yes.
Yeah, it started kind of slow for me. That's kind of like when I barely picked it up. I knew I wanted to do something. I knew I wanted to make cash flow because I was spending a lot of money before I invested renting a studio apartment in Santa Cruz. And I was like, man, imagine owning a building like this and being on the opposite end and collecting that cash flow. So that's kind of how it all started for me. And then Belen kind of like, I met her and then I was like, hey, you should read this, learn this. And that's kind of how we started getting into it. But not until recently things started taking off for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I honestly think it's because of Rat Race. So obviously we knew Felipe because of Bigger Pockets. We obviously heard his rookie podcast when he was on it. And then Jovan knows that I love country, so I really wanted to go to Tennessee, Nashville. And I was like, well, Felipe is out there. Maybe we'll get to like meet him possibly. And so I reached out to him through Instagram and I'm like, hey, we're going to be in Nashville. He had said he was going to do a meetup for people who invest. And I was like, you should do it this week. We're going to be there. He didn't even know me, but he did it that week. And I was really happy. So we met him when we were out there. Then because Felipe is so amazing and so friendly, he wanted to have lunch with us before we left Nashville. And then that's kind of when we started to really talk and get to know each other. And that's when he told us about Rat Race. So this was in October. And since then, we've already hired Anna as our CPA. We've already gotten, like I said, the 2 seller finance properties. We've gotten the 2 under contract. One of them is going to be a flip. Felipe has literally, we call him up, we FaceTime, and he is there to answer. So thank you so much. I just wanted to say that real quick. But yeah, it's only been October, November, December, not even 3 months. And I feel like it's picked up for us a lot more since, because prior to Rat Race, we were going pretty slow.
Cool. And so what made you guys go from where you guys were in California to investing out of state? Like, how did you pick that market? What was that connection?
Well, the big thing is the prices. So the income that I earn here can go a lot further somewhere else. I mean, that's just a fact. In the market that we chose, we originally went there because of a friend had suggested it to us. He knew, he had a cousin there. He told us about the town. They have a refinery in that area. A lot of contractors going in and out. And I flew out there to check it out myself after connecting with a realtor and kind of like establishing a team. And I went out there, got to know the area. I'm like, hey, this kind of reminds me of a small town that I was raised in California. And I kind of liked it. And it's not that far from major cities like Tulsa and Oklahoma City. So like, this is a good commuter town as well. That's pretty much why we chose that area and that state.
And how did you guys find those properties?
Originally it was through our realtor, Russ, shout out to him. Probably gonna put him on your list, Felipe.
Hey.
But I vetted him through Zillow reviews and sales, and I kind of told what I'm looking for, and he kind of guided me in the areas and where not to buy and where you want to be for rentals and whatnot. And he himself owns like 50 rentals, and he has property management company himself. So he's like, I will never tell you to buy something that I wouldn't even want to manage myself. So I'm like, okay, cool. So he's really conservative with his numbers. He never wants to get us in a pickle. He says he's like always looking out for our best interest. So when we first found that property, I was just looking on Zillow, MLS, nothing like off market or anything. I sent it to him. He's like, that's a great one. He's like, put an offer in, and we got it right away because I don't know how we got that deal.
He
Like,
has a lot of connections there.
yeah.
It's a smaller town. And like Felipe is always saying, your network is your net worth. I honestly, that's very true. So when he's saying like build these relationships, he's not kidding. And this realtor of ours, like we feel very close to him because he will give us, he will analyze comps and everything for us. And he'll be like, no, that's not a good area or whatever. But he's definitely done a lot for us.
And you said that you met him just through Zillow, right?
Yeah. So just met him off Zillow, just looking at reviews and sales, and he was highly recommended.
Okay, cool. So from there, did you guys go and check out that area, like fly out there, or?
I actually, when I flew out there, I went out there by myself, blend and go at the time. We had already put an offer and it got accepted in that property. So I bought it before even seeing it physically myself, but my realtor did do walkthrough video for us and everything. I went to check it out after, and then that's kind of how I got to meet him in person, and we were talking about it then.
Yeah, cool. It's really cool to see, like, if the realtor, it's a good realtor, it's trusted, and they can FaceTime you to show you the place, and you're running the numbers and everything looks well. If you trust them, then for sure, buying something sight unseen, like being in the property and stuff like that, and being able to pull the trigger, definitely worth it.
Yeah, I think
the fact that you can do the inspection, you can get other pictures and all of that.
Yeah, I don't think if we didn't have Russ and we were just kind of like winging it, there's no way. Like you have to have someone solid on the ground. And for him being an experienced investor himself is what really made us comfortable to go out there, even pull the trigger on some of these properties. And he always, I mean, for me, I kind of get impatient sometimes. I'm like, oh, I want to make these, get to these goals as fast as we can. But it's like, hey, he's like, slow down. He's like, you don't want to get just anything, like certain things you want to look at. And he's kind of like leveled me out and kind of what to look at. So that's kind of what you need if you're going to do out of state. I mean, everything looks like a good deal when it's cheap when you're from California. But when you buy over there, you can be buying a mess. You just got to be careful.
Yeah, no, for sure. And what are your plans? So once you buy these properties, or the ones that you got owner finance, I'm just going to ask the question that Ulysses asked. What are your plans to manage the properties out of state?
Well, Russ is also our property manager, so he's like 2 for 1 or something. So like Jovan said, he also invests himself, and he has a property management company out there. So when Jovan found him, he's not just a realtor, he's also our property manager. So he deals with all that as well. And I think that was the most important part, was us finding somebody that for us to have the realtor and the property manager before we even bought anything, because we knew that we would be so far away, we wouldn't be able to manage that ourselves, at least us being new at the time. We have some experience here with our triplex because we manage that ourselves. But it's a little bit different because we're renting to people that we know and not to just individuals that we've never met.
Yeah. And the question from Janika, did you do research on other realtors before finding Russ?
Yes. So I did call other realtors. I didn't really get a vibe like I did with Russ. When I told him what my goal was out there, and then we had a good conversation. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna call some property management companies. I want to make sure I have a solid property management team before I even buy anything. Then he's like, hey, hold on. He's like, I do property management too. He's like, I can take it on. He's like, this is my fee. He only charges 10%, and he only charges us if the unit is rented. So if it's vacant, he's not charging us for trying to get a tenant in there. So like his incentive is to like get it filled so he can get paid too. So that's what I thought was really cool about him. Really honest guy.
Cool.
Very interesting.
Ryan is asking, what's Russ's last name?
Did Lake.
Hey, Jovan and Belen, quick question. How are you guys handling out of state flips and things of that nature? Like what's been your processes and what have you learned along the way so far?
Yeah, I could take this question.
Go ahead.
So our first property that we bought in Ponca City, Russ was the one that found this contractor for us, but we didn't really know much. We hadn't done a lot of research. We hadn't read a lot, and we were paying this contractor hourly. So he was getting paid hourly, which is what we feel that it took forever for the property to actually get rehabbed. It took like a little bit over 6 months. So we purchased it in July. The guy went in there in August and it didn't get fixed until like January. So it ate up a lot of our potential profits, as well as the whole rehab cost was just, it went up the roof. It went 20K over what we expected, which was 30,000. So we ended up paying over $50,000 just for the labor and the materials. And it's something that we didn't really have in our budget. So we were over here trying to figure out how to pay for the rest of the rehab work. And so, we learned from that. For our second property that's still currently being rehabbed, we ended up getting a different contractor, which I personally was having issues with because I'm currently managing him. And I was having the issues of him not being very organized and not listening or keeping track of the directions I was giving him. But Felipe even mentioned like, well, maybe just fire him, find a new one. Unfortunately, Ponca City doesn't have a lot of contractors out there that do very good work. And our contractor right now, he does really good work. You just have to be really on top of him and hand holding. And it's something that I had to learn the hard way. So he's almost done. This is the last week of them working in there, and all the details are beautiful. Like, they did an incredible job, him and his team. It was just me having to really sit down and be like, okay, this is what we want. I literally had to draw it out for him. So I had to figure out a way to really work with him, where I have taken over me buying all the materials for our rehab. So I'm in charge of buying all of that. I'm in charge of like making sure that he's working week by week. Like, okay, what are you working on this week? Okay, at the end of the week, what did you work on? Did you finish everything you said you were going to finish? Cool. Here's your payment for the week. Moving forward, we do want to give him another shot, just because we've worked really hard to build that relationship with him. But we want to do something different. That, again, because of rat race, now we know to do different draws. So like, for one, let's say for painting, we're gonna pay him halfway through the job, and then at the end we'll give him the rest. So that's just an example of like things that we've learned of how to manage the contracting team better. And it's a lot of FaceTimes with him. It's a lot of calls. It's a lot of, okay, walk me through what's going on. What's the issue? Let's figure it out together. Instead of just saying, okay, just fix the house. Okay, bye. See you in 3 months. No, it's definitely a lot of hand holding.
Do you visit the properties in person, or do you plan to?
We don't visit every property in person because it's just so far. When we went out there, we did drive by what we already own. I mean, I guess that's visiting it. But before we make a purchase, no, we don't. It's just a walkthrough with the realtor.
Yeah. I've bought, personally, I bought quadplex, a duplex, and 2 single-family homes in Jacksonville, Florida, and I've never saw them. I never saw them. The property that I have with Felipe, I've been to Nashville 2 times already, and Felipe's like, we don't need to go. And I'm like, all right, well, whatever. But I haven't seen the property either.
You've seen pictures, right?
I've seen pictures, of course, right? But for example,
seen the check that he gets every month.
And the check, and I see the check. But from that perspective, it's not like, as long as you know what's going on, and if you can see it like that through FaceTime and all that stuff, you'll be okay. And then if you do go out there, of course, it's tax deductible, right? Because you're going to go check on your properties. You can take it as a vacation too, but it gives you an opportunity to be able to check out the property.